I have to admit something, I'm not a pro cinematographer, I'm a wildlife and travel enthusiast who got into photography, started making short form video reels, moved into YouTube for vlogging, and now I'm fumbling my way towards understanding the world of cinematic storytelling. But I think that's exactly why Nikon invited me to test out their new Nikon ZR before launch, to see if a camera at this price point with pro cinema features can help a self-taught creator like myself create work that actually feels cinematic. So if you're like me, an aspiring filmmaker and solo run-and-gun traveler, the Nikon ZR and this review are for you. Everything you just watched was shot with a pre-production unit of the Nikon ZR. If you want to see the full 5-minute short film that I made, the link is somewhere up there and in the description. It's a quick watch, and I hope you enjoy my very first attempt at making a documentary film. Now let's talk about what this thing is actually packing under the hood. The ZR is a full-frame camera that records 6K R3D RAW with 15 plus stops of dynamic range, captures 32-bit flow audio, has built-in stabilization up to 7.5 stops, and gives you a massive 4-inch screen. So let me break down those highlights and a few others from my field test at Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary in Uganda, starting with the Red Code RAW R3D-NE codec. The ZR records Red's new R3D-NE internally up to full-frame 6K 60p or 4K 120p with the small DX crop. You're getting 12-bit Red RAW that uses Log3G10 and Red wide gamut, so color, highlight roll-off, and grading flexibility feels like real cinema media. You can also load Red Creative LUTs into the View Assist, so you're previewing something close to your final look as you shoot. For my pre-release test, I monitored with a basic Rec 709 view, and it worked quite well. The ZR shoots in two base ISOs of 800 and 6400 with 15 plus stops of dynamic range. And that extra latitude was definitely noticeable in mixed light and backlit scenes, of which I shot quite a bit on this shoot. I was stress testing constantly, changing ISOs, pushing exposures, and still I rarely experienced clipped highlights or crushed shadows. And that gives me a nice safety net while I learn to shoot better over time. In my experience, R3D-NE file size sits in the same ballpark as high quality NRAW and is generally leaner than ProRes RAW, which is crucial for my typical travel shoots where storage space is limited. One of the biggest surprises about the ZR wasn't the image quality, it was the audio. The ZR can record 32-bit flow audio internally as well as from the digital hot shoe or the mic jack, and that's a huge win for my filming style. Given the unpredictable nature of my travel shoots, I'm rarely in controlled environments, and in this case I had occasional chimps screeching into the mic. So not having to worry about adjusting levels mid-take is a huge relief. I also tried Nikon's new MED10 shotgun mic, which, spoiler alert, I really liked. It's compact, requires no cables or batteries, and it feeds audio directly via the digital hot shoe. So let's look at a few notable examples from my shoot. This is in front mode, focus mode on the shotgun mic. I'm going to switch this now to the all mode. So now it's on all, so I don't know if that means it should be capturing a bit more ambient sound besides just whatever's in front of the camera. So you guys be the judge if the sound quality has changed at all. And then we're going to do one final thing. Let's go over to this rear mode. So now it should be picking up on the rear side if my deduction skills are anything. And now we were in focus. Let's go ahead and choose pure. So there's like two kind of switches you can play around with. So one of the options you can switch between is focus and pure. Same thing, let me switch over to the all mode. So now this is all mode, pure mode. The all pure mode, let's just say. So you guys tell me, and we'll see later, obviously, how the sound is. Last thing, let's go switch this to the rear. So now in this rear mode, maybe you might not be able to hear me too well, I'm not sure. I am without the shotgun mic, so we're just going with the built-in mic recordings. So I believe this is set to the 32-bit float recording, so very, very excited to test that out. For solo travel work, 32-bit float internally feels like a cheat code. It means fewer retakes, fewer ruined moments, and of course, fewer gadgets that I need to stuff into my travel bags. Let's briefly talk about how stable the footage is from the ZR. It's not necessarily one of the game-changing features that Nikon is touting about the camera, but it's definitely one of the most important for my style of shooting. When you're chasing after wild travel moments, the faster you can adapt, the better. Whether that's swapping out lenses or filters or changing settings, or in my case, shooting handheld most times, where you need to stuff the camera in the bag while you're pushing through a dense jungle environment, to then switching it out, swapping lenses, and then hopefully you capture the shot. And with the ZR's in-body stabilization rated up to 7.5 stops, it absolutely helped keep my footage stable and usable while I was moving fast. Here's my favorite example from the documentary. I'm walking backwards quickly to match the chimp's pace, and I'm trying not to trip over tree roots, and I'm handheld. And between the IBIS smoothing out the micro jitters and a light passive stabilization in DaVinci Resolve with the minimal crop, I ended up with footage that looks way more controlled than I had any right to expect. So bottom line, for a run and gun shooter, the ZR works for my non-gimbal shots. Finally, let's talk about the feature you can't miss, literally, the beautiful 4-inch articulating screen. Most competing cinema cameras have a 3-inch display, which forces filmmakers to attach a 5-inch external monitor. The ZR sits right in the middle, and for my needs, that's a sweet spot. The display is big, bright, and DCI P3 color. Even when I was shooting midday with the sun burning my face, I could still judge exposure and focus without guessing. While the large display definitely makes filming accurately easier, the real value, in my opinion, comes from the indirect benefits. I don't need to stack this external monitor with a heavy battery and cables and memory cards, which essentially doubles the weight of my rig. And the net result is I save weight, I get more stable shots, I simplify my workflow, and I frame and focus more confidently. Let's quickly go over some of the additional features I liked about the ZR, starting with the option to shoot in shutter angle instead of shutter speed. Without getting into too much of the technical detail, which I barely understand myself, shooting in 180-degree shutter angle means the camera automatically sets the right shutter speed for whatever frame rate I'm in, so motion blur looks consistently right. I change frame rates quite often on my travel shoots, so not having to redial my shutter speed constantly every time I change my frame rate not only saves me time, it helps me avoid mistakes. The power zoom rocker worked really well in my limited test using a power zoom lens, and that meant I didn't have to manually twist the lens's zoom ring. And even with my primes, I used the rocker as a quick punch-in to double-check focus and details. The camera powers on super fast, which matters when a moment appears and vanishes in a flash, as is prone to happen in my world. And at 630 grams, this camera is even lighter than my Nikon Z6 III. Now let's go over some of the features I didn't like. First, the single CF Express Type B slot alongside the micro SD slot, which means there's no true redundancy when I'm shooting in RAW. To be fair, I've never had any corruption issues with any of my Nikon cameras so far, but it's still a concern. A minor issue I had is on the power button placement. I do enjoy how quickly the camera turns on, but I'm paranoid that it might bump into something in my bag and accidentally turn on, draining the battery. Another issue for me is the fewer physical buttons, which by the way I think is not a long-term problem, it just takes some getting used to. Especially without a dedicated back button focus button, and for this shoot I basically half pressed the shutter to focus, and a few times I accidentally stopped recording because I pressed too hard, and that is frustrating. Now again, I believe there is a way to fix that by just separating out the AF on button from the recording button. I just couldn't figure out how to get that set up in my limited time with the camera, so hopefully that's user error, or worst case that's a firmware fix. Lastly, the micro HDMI port. I know most professionals hate it. Because I don't really use external monitors often with my filmmaking, especially now that there's a 4-inch screen, I just feel that the impact is probably minor for my needs. And I did do a bit of testing with the micro HDMI connected to an external monitor. I didn't see any noticeable changes in the quality, so I'm assuming it's really complaining about the durability of the cables. But like I said, I'm just going to avoid it as much as possible. So here's my verdict. The Nikon ZR is a game changer and a huge win for the brand. It shows that Nikon is committed to videography and not just dabbling in it as an afterthought. Especially at the price to have 6K internal RAW, the 32-bit flow audio, IBIS up to 7.5 stops, and the 4-inch screen, it gives amateur creators like me access to pro cinema features in a compact body that lets you shoot fast and light without compromising image quality. I think this camera is perfect for aspiring filmmakers, solo creators, travel shooters who want to level up from vlogs to cinematic storytelling. And if you're a photographer, crossing into video, or a small crew that lives in documentaries or weddings or branded content, the camera fits that world. And for me, the proof is in the pudding. I solo shot a travel wildlife documentary for the first time in start to finish, about 1 week, with no gimbal and minimal accessories. So the ZR allowed me to punch way above my weight and focus on storytelling, not on building some complicated transformer rig. So bottom line, while I'm not a pro cinematographer yet, the Nikon ZR made my work feel cinematic while also making the process fun and achievable. And almost as importantly, it makes me excited to go out into the world to shoot and be creative confidently. If you enjoyed my review, I hope you'll let me know in the comments. And if you didn't enjoy the video, also let me know in the comments. As a small YouTuber, all engagement is good. And if you want to see more cinematic content, follow my channel as I continue to share the best of the world with the rest of the world through my lens. Until then, take care, and I will see you in the next video.